Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning, sir.
Yesterday, when we left off, we had been discussing one of the trips you made out to 34 Fairview, specifically on an occasion in which you met Chief Berkowitz. I want to ask you a couple of questions to follow up on those questions that I asked yesterday. Did Chief Berkowitz ever talk to you about his communications with Brian Albert and or Brian Higgins, either at that time or afterward?
Objection.
Did you learn that Chief Berkowitz had communicated one way or the other, without telling me anything that they said? Did you learn whether or not Chief Berkowitz had communicated with Brian Higgins?
No.
Did you learn that Chief Berkowitz had communicated with Brian Albert? And I'm talking about in the days before you were at 34 Fairview, which was February 4th, from the 29th to February 4th.
No.
You returned to the scene, you indicated on direct examination, on or about February 10th, 2022, to conduct yet another search, correct?
Yes.
And on that particular occasion, you recovered some 6 pieces of red and or clear and or black plastic. Is that how you testified?
There was numerous pieces. The exact number, I don't know. You'd have to refresh my memory with a report.
Okay. There were several pieces. The exact number, I'm not really worried about. There were several. There's more than one.
Yes.
Okay. There were also some clear glass pieces, correct?
Again, I don't know exactly, but if a report can be presented, it would refresh my memory.
Okay. Let's do that real quick. So you can actually look at the front page of that as well. Just familiarize yourself with it.
Thank you.
Let me know when you familiarize yourself with that report. May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. Sergeant, did you have an opportunity to take a look at this report?
I did.
Did that refresh your recollection as to the items generally that you recovered on February 10th?
Yes, I did.
Did you recover approximately 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic and 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments?
Yes, I did.
Okay. You would obviously consider that to be an incredibly important part of the investigation, recovering physical items at the scene of the incident, correct?
Every piece of evidence is important.
Can you describe for the jurors exactly where each of the, let's take them one at a time, where each of the 6 pieces of plastic fragments were found?
All items recovered that day were found in the general vicinity where the other items were also located. The area had been excavated. I've been to that location several times, and it was all located in the general vicinity where it was initially excavated, but also where I was told Mr. John O'Keefe was found on the morning of January 29th, 2022.
So, other than saying in the general vicinity, did you seek to actually document where each item was found? In other words, by cross coordinates or some other such manner?
The exact location where each item was recovered from was not documented with a picture or GPS location. It was still within the general vicinity of that 40 to 50 square feet or so, by my approximation, near the flagpole between the street, the flagpole, and the fire hydrant. It was all the same general vicinity.
So 40 to 50 square feet would be 10 foot by 5 foot square, correct?
Generally speaking, 50, yeah, okay. 5 by 10, general area.
If I may, Your Honor, if I may approach this a little bit, would you agree with me? I'm not going to pull out a measuring tape. Would you agree I'm about 10 feet from you right now?
I would agree with you, yes.
Okay. And from the jury bar, probably about 5 feet from there?
Yes.
So we're talking about a relatively broad area for small pieces of physical evidence to be found. You would agree with that?
I would, again, estimate it was the general area, maybe 10 feet in one direction, 10 feet in another, and 5 feet out, maybe 3 feet out. They were the general area where it was initially excavated and then expanded with the snow melting, and all the pieces were within that general area.
But you were working on an assumption at that point, on an assumption that there was some sort of an impact at 3430, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You were working on an assumption or a presumption that there was an impact of a physical item, in your view, an SUV, with a human being, correct? That was your presumption at the time.
The evidence was pointing that impact took place because there was damage to the taillight. Large chunks of it was missing, and we were locating pieces that were consistent with texture, color, and size fragments from that SUV on the lawn. So I wasn't assuming anything. The evidence was speaking to us.
You weren't there, correct?
I was there recovering the evidence, yes.
You weren't there at the time of the incident.
No, of course not.
So you were utilizing assumptions and presumptions based on information that was provided to you. Yes or no?
We work by learning information, collecting evidence, and getting that evidence to suggest what happened. That evidence is tested, and then it's all put together into the case.
You use the word to suggest what happened, correct?
Yes.
Another word for a suggestion is if something is suggested to you, you then receive it and assume certain things based on that suggestion.
What we do with suggestions, we corroborate them. A witness statement is, I guess you can say, a suggestion, and then we corroborate it through evidence.
And of course, you make assumptions based on those suggestions, right? Yes or no?
We have theories.
Another term for a theory is an assumption or a presumption, correct?
I guess in some respect you can say that,
Okay.
but I'm not going to argue about semantics here.
Well, you'll agree that words matter, right? I mean, you're testifying, so words do matter.
Words do matter. That's important.
So, working off of your, as you put it, your theory, you theorized that there was an impact spot at 3430, correct?
Based on the statement I hit him, I assumed that Mr. O'Keefe was impacted with something. Initial hours of the investigation, we had the statements I hit him. We had the statements that, oh my God, did I hit him? So utilizing that information with the evidence at that point that we had was a broken cocktail glass. So a theory would be, why is the cocktail glass broken? Because it came into contact with the victim. So that's why my information communicated to the ME's office was a possible domestic involving a glass strike to the victim. As a result, we had to go and see the victim's body and the injuries. So Mr. O'Keefe's injuries presented a certain way, and we learned more information. So the more information that comes in, the more information that we are able to corroborate statements and collect evidence that further corroborates other information is helpful in the investigation. That's how investigations develop. If we knew everything we knew from day one, there wouldn't be a process of developing investigation.
So the answer to my question, Sergeant, is you were working off of a theory, correct? Yes or no?
We were working off a report of an injured male party, and then we developed the information, collected the evidence, and developed the investigation.
Do you know what the word theory means?
I'm sorry, English is like a third language for me. So if you can bring up the Webster's dictionary, I can read it out.
You want me to pull up the Webster's dictionary? You want to take a break real quick and pull up the Webster's dictionary to define a word that you used in an answer about 40 seconds ago? We were working off of a theory, quote unquote. You said it, not me. You want me to go get a dictionary so we can figure out for the jurors what that word means?
Objection.
All right, Sister, let's move along, please.
You would agree with me, Sergeant Bukhenik, that if your theory was that there was an impact, the site of that impact would be incredibly important, correct?
Very important, yes.
And on February 10th, you went out to the scene and you indicate that you found 6 pieces of black, clear, and red plastic material and 14 pieces of glass material and some other plastic material as well, correct?
Yes.
You didn't photograph it? Is that
No,
right?
I did not.
You didn't do any plotting of cross coordinates, which would have been easy to do to determine exactly where each piece was found, correct?
It would not be easy for me. I don't know how to do that.
You've never learned how to plot cross coordinates?
I don't have the tools to GPS coordinate an item.
You take 2 points that are stable. You know what cross coordinates are? Take 2 points that are stable, like for instance, I don't know, let's pick something, like a flagpole that doesn't move. And you draw a line, pull a string directly over the item that you find. Then you take another stable item that's perpendicular to that, pull that straight, put it down. That's exactly, you measure the distance between the two, that's exactly where that item, where those 2 strings cross, that's exactly where that item's found. That's cross coordinates, isn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
You ever heard of that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you know what cross coordinates are?
No.
Do you know how to plot cross coordinates?
You just demonstrated to me.
Does that sound reasonable and easy?
What you explained sounds easy, yes.
And you didn't do that.
I did not.
You also didn't, by the way, you had your cell phone when you went out there on February 10th, correct?
I would assume so, yes.
Your cell phone has a camera built into it, correct?
Yes, it does.
You indicated on direct examination you didn't think it was necessary to call out a forensic photographer to photograph and photo document where these items were found. Is that right?
That's right.
But you could have pulled your cell phone out and taken photographs of them, right?
I guess I could have, yes.
But you didn't do any coordinates and you didn't take any photos.
I did not know.
Can you show us a report that memorializes where you supposedly recovered these items?
Yes, the report you showed me, number 83, that documents that they were all recovered at 34 Fairview Road.
Right. So that's correct. There's a report after the fact that establishes that they were recovered generally at 34 Fairview Road on February 10th. But is there a report that describes exactly where on the property at 34 Fairview or off the property at 34 Fairview these 20 items were found? That's a question. I'm waiting.
Oh, I didn't realize. But
Do you need me to repeat the question?
was there a question? Go ahead, please.
Sure. Is there a report that documents exactly where at 34 Fairview on the property these 20-odd items were found exactly?
The report documenting where they were recovered from is number 83 that you've just presented. Exact location is the same general vicinity. If it was something different, if we located these items across the street, different section of the yard, that would have been documented.
What's documented in the report that you just referenced says bullet point 2/10/22, meaning February 10/22 at 9:15 a.m. Sergeant Bukhenik secured 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic, period. That's what it says, right?
Same general vicinity. If there was a different location...
That's what the report says, isn't it? That's all I'm asking. That's what the report says, what I just quoted.
That's the description of the items
So the
recovered.
answer is yes. That's what the report says.
That is part of the report. That is the description of the items recovered on that date.
And the bullet point beneath that says February 10th, 2022 at 9:15 a.m., Sergeant Bukhenik secured 14 pieces of glass and plastic fragments. Right?
That's correct.
There is no further description of where those items were found, is there?
There is.
Where's the report with the further description of exactly where they were found?
It might not be in the report. It might be on the description of the bag, describing that it was 34 Fairview Road. The report indicates and encompasses itself where those items were recovered from. Clearly, the same general vicinity the initial items were recovered from. If there was a need to document a different location, it would have happened.
But you didn't see the need to document the exact coordinates where those items were found, did you? You didn't see the need.
It did not happen.
Can I approach you?
Yes.
Take a look at that photograph. Tell me if you recognize it. What's depicted in it?
Yes, I do.
What's depicted in that photograph, just generally?
It's the side of evidence bag that the items were secured in. It documents the case number, the date, time, who recovered it, and general description of the 6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
I'd like to have that marked and move it evidence, John.
Is there any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit 111.
You indicated that the evidence bag would help determine where the exact location was that these items were found, correct?
The general location where they were recovered from.
Will you publish this, John?
Okay.
Does this look like the photograph that you were just reviewing?
Yes, it does.
That's just been marked as evidence?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Will, can we make that a little larger so it's more legible? Can you read that from where you are?
I can.
Moving past the date, moving on to the date. What date is that?
Date collected is 2/10/22.
So that's the date that we've been talking about, correct?
That is correct.
And this indicates collected by, and who's that?
That's myself, Sergeant Bukhenik.
Description of evidence. This is where the description of the evidence is located on this evidence bag, correct?
General description identifying what's inside.
And what is that description?
6 pieces of red, black, and clear plastic.
And that's all it says about the description, correct?
Yes.
And it indicates location where collected. And there's several lines that are available to fill in, correct?
Correct.
On that first line, what does that read?
34 Fairview Road, Canton, MA.
And that's it, correct?
That's all that was put, yes.
And you didn't fill this bag out, did you?
No, I did not.
Who did?
I do not know.
Who did?
I don't know.
You don't recognize the handwriting?
No, I do not.
You don't recognize the handwriting of your partner and subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you aware that Michael Proctor filled this out?
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you with Michael Proctor when this was back?
No, I was not. I was by myself.
Did you give the items of evidence to Michael Proctor to bag?
No, I did not.
Who did you give it to bag?
I bagged it myself.
Whose handwriting is that?
I do not know.
If you bagged it yourself, why didn't you fill out the evidence envelope?
I bagged it and turned it over, and I told him exactly where it was and what time. So someone else wrote the information.
You just said, I bagged it and told him.
Turned it over.
No, sir. No, sir. What you just said was, I bagged it and turned it over to him. And you don't know who it is that you turned it over to? Who's the him?
Turned it over to them.
Who's them?
Them. Whoever wrote it. Whoever wrote it.
So we're just in a circle here. We can turn the lights
Objection
out.
to the commentary.
So, Mr. Jackson, no comments, okay? Just
Understood.
question.
I apologize. Ignore my last comment. You had items of evidence that you already described as being incredibly important, correct?
Those are your words. I actually changed. I said every piece of evidence is important.
Okay. Since this is part of every piece of evidence, you think this evidence was important?
Every piece of evidence is important.
So was this evidence important? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you had the evidence and turned it over to someone who you don't know and can't identify. Is that what we understand?
It was a member of the Massachusetts State Police assigned to our office. It wasn't just a random person. I can't specifically identify who it was or who wrote on that bag. I know it was a trusted member of our unit and part of the investigative team.
How do you know it was a trusted member of your unit and a part of the investigative team if you can't tell these jurors who it was? How do you know that?
Because I wouldn't have turned it over to a random stranger.
Okay, so let's figure out the possibilities. Who were among those to whom you would have turned this stuff over? Who were among them?
There was 4 troopers in the detective unit at that point assigned to homicide.
Let's name them. Who are they?
It was Trooper DeChico, Trooper Kakowski, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Mike Proctor.
As you sit here today, do you believe or do you recall turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
Objection.
We're going to go through each person.
Everyone. There's only 4.
I'll allow this question.
You remember turning it over to Trooper Dunn?
No,
You remember turning it over to Trooper Pikowski?
no,
You remember turning it over to Trooper Pacheco?
no,
You remember turning it over to Michael Proctor?
no.
So it might have been just a random stranger. Right?
That's a ridiculous suggestion.
Have you ever seen Trooper Proctor's handwriting before?
Yes,
Matter of fact, you've seen it, I'm guessing, not dozens, maybe hundreds of times, right?
not hundreds of times, no.
Dozens of times
Sure,
over the years.
sure.
On evidence bags, on logs, on notes, things of that nature.
Some evidence bags, some notes.
May I approach your Honor?
Yes.
Can you take a look at that document and tell me if you recognize it?
The whole thing or just the front page?
No, just look through and tell me if you recognize generally what that is.
It appears to be a bunch of handwritten notes from possibly witness interviews.
Handwritten notes by whom?
Well, you labeled it Proctor. I don't know who it is based on the individuals interviewed. It might suggest that these are Michael Proctor's notes.
Okay, so you're testifying that I labeled that Proctor?
I don't know.
Right, so you don't know.
Well, you provided a document to me, so.
Right, I know. And then you just testified that I labeled that Proctor. How do you know I labeled that Proctor?
Well, I got it from you.
You didn't send me right that.
Objection.
Sustained. Questions, please.
Sure. That appears to be Michael Proctor, a series of Michael Proctor's notes, correct?
That's what's suggested, yes.
Okay. In terms of the first tab, the vertical tab,
Some of these came off.
it's fine. I'm just interested in the purple tab. Do you see a series of handwritten notes that appear to be from Michael Proctor? Not worried about the content.
Sure. The D.
Highlight?
Yes.
What's the word that's handwritten in that highlight?
Objection.
So why don't we come to sidebar with this guy, please?
In the ordinary course of business, is it normal standard operating procedure that the person who recovers items of evidence fills out the evidence bag contemporaneous to the recovery of the item?
It's possible you can do that if there's a reason that you have to leave, an emergency or weather conditions you can't write on the bag. You can fill it out later if you have the time and you know where you recovered it from, which is like, you know, in this instance, if it was a general vicinity where all the other fragments of evidence was collected from, it's known that it was within the general area of that section of the lawn near the flagpole between the street and the flagpole and the fire hydrant. So it's...
The person that filled out that evidence envelope wasn't with you.
Well, I passed that information along to them.
I see. So now it's hearsay information that's being passed along to someone else to fill out the envelope.
Objection.
Sustained.
It's secondhand, let's use that word, secondhand information to the person who's filling out the evidence envelope, correct?
No, it's firsthand information. I passed that along to them.
So it went from you to a person filling out the envelope who wasn't there. Let's at least agree on it.
I was by myself, so yes, I told the individual what time, what location, the case number, the date, obviously.
How do you know? How do you know that you told the individual to whom you passed this along the time, the location, the date? How do you know that as you sit here?
Because that information was then put on the bag and documented.
But you can't even remember who you talked to.
I do not remember specifically who I talked to, no.
If you can't remember who you talked to, you don't remember what you said. Goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
That's not true. I might not remember now, but the day that it was bagged on February 10th, 2022, I remembered. And that's why the accurate, detailed information is on the bag.
A bag you didn't fill out, correct?
That's correct.
And information provided to someone you can't remember.
Today I can't remember, no.
You're aware that that particular bag, that evidence bag, was not booked until March 14th, 2022, correct?
I don't understand what you're saying.
Those pieces of evidence were never booked into evidence until March 14th, 2022.
Those particular pieces of evidence were collected on February 10th, 2022.
Sergeant Bekhenik, do you know the difference between collecting a piece of evidence and booking it into evidence, creating a booking label, creating an evidence log, things of that nature? Do you know the difference?
I understand the difference, yes,
Okay.
but you claiming that it wasn't booked into something doesn't mean that it wasn't properly handled in custody and under our control.
Sir, I'm not claiming anything. You're testifying. I'm asking questions. Was it booked into evidence on February 10th?
If you show me a document, I can tell you what
Sure.
it might be suggesting.
You can take a look at those two documents and tell me whether or not you recognize them. Okay. I'm going to leave those up there with you. Does one of those appear to be the log sheet for the crime lab?
One is a chain of custody report for the crime lab of all the evidence that was processed, received, processed, and returned. Yes.
And the other document?
The other document is simply a receipt of evidence being submitted on a certain day to the lab.
And both of those documents indicate that the first time the evidence was submitted to the crime lab was March 14th, 2022, correct?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I will have to take a look. It's going to be some time, please.
Well, you can look at the top. Well, let me ask you, ask it in a question form. if you look through the log, it's in chronological order, the chain of custody log, correct?
By item, I believe, but I didn't take a deep dive into it. I have to take a look.
Right. Do you see any item, especially focusing on item 712 or items 712, do you see any item being booked into the crime lab before March 14th, 2022?
All right, I'll take a look.
Did that refresh your recollection as to when the items were booked at the crime lab?
According to this document, yes, there were items booked at the crime lab prior to March 14th. In particular, to answer your question, completeness here, particular, that one item does indicate that the first time the lab received it for processing was March 14th.
So they were booked at the lab March 14th, correct?
The first time the lab received these items for processing, according to this document, is March 14th.
And there's no indication on any document as to where those items were before March 14th.
There is. We displayed the bag, me collecting them on February 10th, and they were in our possession at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
Whose possession?
The Norfolk District Attorney's Office.
Your possession? Specifically?
At one point, they were in my possession, and I turned it over.
Right. After you turned it over on February 10th, it was the day that you claimed to have found these items. After February 10th, they were not in your possession anymore, were they?
No, once I turned them over, they're not in my possession.
When
No.
you say turn them over, you're talking about turning them over to someone whom we don't know, correct? As we sit here.
Right now, I don't have a memory of who I turned it over to, but it was a member of our homicide team.
So the next time, Sergeant Bukhenik, the next time there's any documentation about those items is March 14th, nearly 6 weeks later, 5 weeks later, correct?
I don't know that to be correct, no.
But you can't point to any documentation. You're looking at the logs. You can't point to any documentation indicating the chain of custody of these items between February 10th and March 14th. Is that right?
This is simply a log from the lab.
Yes or no? Can you point to any documentation?
Ask the question.
Can you point to any documentation indicating where those items went, whose possession they were in what circumstance, between February 10th and March 14th? Can you point to any document?
I know that it was collected on February 10th.
Right.
It's documented that it was collected. It was at the Norfolk District Attorney's Office before it was logged into the lab for processing.
You keep answering the same question that I'm not asking.
Objection.
Sustained. No comments, Mr. Jackson.
Sergeant Bukhenik, do you understand my question? I'm asking, can you point to a single document for these jurors as to where those items went and in whose possession they remained, specifically between February 10th, when you lost sight of them, and March 14th, when the crime lab received them?
Objection.
Sustained.
May I approach?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Mr.
Just for
Brennan.
the evidence.
Just for the evidence. False start. As the supervisor, you're generally aware of the evidence in this case, correct?
It depends, but very generally on most cases, yes.
As a matter of fact, as the supervisor, one of your duties would be to make sure that evidence is collected and processed appropriately and properly, correct?
That is the standard, yes.
You're also aware that all of the physical evidence that was booked eventually at the crime lab on March 14th, 2022, was done so by Michael Proctor, correct?
I'm not sure exactly who delivered it or who booked it in, but if you have a document, I will reflect on it.
Take a look at that. Tell me if that refreshes your recollection.
Yes, it does.
May I approach?
Yes.
What is this document you just looked at?
It's the receipt of evidence submission to the crime lab.
And who submitted, based on that document, who submitted all of that evidence to the crime lab?
Michael Proctor.
You're also aware that Michael Proctor eventually submitted a total of some 46 or so pieces of taillight material that was claimed to have been recovered at 34 Fairview on since January 29th, 2022, correct?
I don't know the total pieces, but we didn't claim to recover it there. We recovered it there.
You're testifying that they were recovered, but you didn't recover all of them, did you?
I did not recover all of them, no.
Matter of fact, Michael Proctor, according to you, recovered some of those items, correct?
Some of those items were recovered by Michael Proctor, yes.
And you're also aware that he submitted pieces of taillight material that he indicated he recovered as late as February 18th, 2022, correct?
I am aware that there was items recovered on February 18th. I am not sure exactly if it was him or someone else that recovered it.
You indicated, I think in direct examination yesterday, that as of February 3rd or February 4th, the weather had broken, generally, correct? It was getting warmer.
Yes, the weather was warmer. There were rainy days following the 3rd, I believe. No, the 4th. The 4th, it was raining when I picked up that piece of evidence. So, yeah, the weather had warmed up.
So it was raining and somewhat storming on the 4th?
There was precipitation when I recovered that item. I mean, I don't know if it was storming. There was a low pressure cell coming through. I have no idea.
Okay. But that's the same day that you were told that Chief Berkowitz was driving by and saw the presence.
The day I picked up the single piece with Canton PD present, it was raining.
So he would have been driving by, windows up, water on the windows, in the rain, and saw the red piece?
Objection.
Sustained.
You indicated that on February 10th, when you did your final visit, made your final visit to 34 Fairview, you indicated yesterday during testimony that there was quote unquote very little snow still present, correct?
That's correct.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sergeant, that's a 2-page document. Could you familiarize yourself with those 2 pages, please, and let me know when you finish?
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, what do those 2 pages purport to reflect? What are they pictures of? Just general, an evidence bag and something else?
The first one's an evidence bag with
Can you
some.
tell me the date, just so we can cut to the chase, the date of that evidence collection according to that?
On the bag, the date is 2/11/22.
Okay, and what's the
On the sticker, there's another date. There's a sticker March 9th of 22.
okay, what's the,
There's also a date at the
I'm just interested in the 2 pages, just general. I need to mark it for evidence. What's the second page look like?
second page is a large piece of red and black taillight plastic cover, and it's identified by a lab number, I believe.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. So there's 1 page of the evidence bag, the other page purports to be the item that was in the evidence bag, correct?
I don't know that, no.
Okay.
It's just one's an evidence bag with information on it, and then there's a photograph of a piece recovered. I don't know.
I'd like to have those points and introduce his next thing over A and B. You want to request to publish?
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Taking a look at this item, can you describe to the jurors what they're looking at, please?
This is an evidence bag. It is labeled with case number, date collected, time, who collected it, description of items enclosed, the location it was recovered, and the victim's full name. It also has a to scale ruler for the photograph and some identifying marks from the laboratory.
Can you indicate for the jurors who was it that collected this item according to the evidence bag?
According to this evidence bag, it was collected by Trooper Proctor.
And can you show the date, or tell the jurors the date that it indicates the item was collected, or items were collected?
I believe it says 2/11/22.
February 11th. So that would be the day after you were at the location, correct?
It would be the day after, yes.
Can we have the full screen, Mr. Woke? You see the designation at the bottom beneath the measuring ruler?
Yes, I do, yes.
Is there a case number or case designator starting with 22?
Yes, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe it's a LIMS number 22-02184.
And you see an item number listed right next to that case number?
Yes, this indicates it's 7-15.
And there's another set of initials beneath that, it appears, correct?
That's what, I mean, there's letters. I don't know if there's someone's initials. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry.
Fair enough. This appears to be something that was filled out by the crime lab. The black lettering and numbering, correct?
I would assume. I don't know for sure, though.
Okay, and obviously there's a date down here, 2/17/23, a year later, correct?
Yes.
And it says Canton at the bottom.
Yes.
If we could have the full screen, please. Okay, you also indicated that there was a label up at the top, correct?
Yes.
All right. If we could go to the second page, it would be page B of this. Can you look at first of all, look at the bottom and tell me if that number designator appears to be the same as on the evidence, as on the previous page?
The limbs or the item number? The item
limbs.
number is 715.
Okay. And that comports with what we just saw in the previous page, correct?
That is the same number.
All right. This would be an exemplar, one of the items in that evidence bag labeled 715, correct? There were several items, but this is one of them. Is that right? It's how the crime lab keeps them separate?
I believe so. I don't know their procedures. I believe so. I know they use alphanumeric identifiers. As I can't testify to their procedures, why they do it, how they do it, or the sequence in which, or the choice in numbers or letters. I have no idea about any of that.
We can have the lights up with the court's permission. We can leave this up. If you could leave that up, Mr. Wolf. All right. You can still see that on the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You went out to 34 Fairview on February 10th, 24 hours before February 11th, right? To pick up a piece of, I'm sorry, to look for additional items of evidence, correct?
I collected, I believe, 20 pieces in total, 6 and 14, the day prior, yes.
You see the size of this, according to you. Jim,
Yes.
how big is that? The widest part.
At the widest part, it appears, if there's no optical illusion with the ruler location, 6 inches.
Okay. That's 6 inches is the size of a dollar bill, right?
That's correct.
Okay. It also looks like it may be more than that from top to bottom, 6, maybe 7 inches, top to bottom. Did you use an estimate?
Possibly a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't see this item on February 10th when you were there, correct?
If I saw that item, I would have picked it up.
Right. Wasn't there, was it?
That's not what I'm saying. I said if I saw it, I would have picked it up.
But you didn't see it, did you?
I did not see it, obviously.
But
No.
according to the information that we just presented, this item was found the next day by Trooper Michael Proctor. Right.
Based on the information presented, that's what it says, yes.
There, Coach.
Yes.
You can take that down. May I approach one more time?
Okay.
Thank you. This is a 3-page document. You
Did
can
you show
familiarize
Mr.
yourself.
Brennan? I didn't see it.
Thank you.
I did, do this one. Are you familiar with that document? When I say that's a bad question, let me ask it a different way. Do you recognize what's generally in those 3 pages?
I got to take a look.
Sure.
I must have missed your first
Sure.
request.
Sergeant, can you describe generally, just very generally, so I can either mark it or not mark it, do you recognize what's depicted on the first page, the second page, and the third page?
The first page depicts an evidence bag from labeled date of collection 2/18/22. Second page is a red piece of plastic, and third page is also a photograph of a longer red piece of plastic with a little bit of black molding on it.
Your Honor, I would ask that that be moved into evidence as A, B, and C subordinately.
Is there any objections?
No objection.
Move to publish, Your Honor.
Okay.
Sergeant, same couple of questions, if we could. Do you see a date of collection on this evidence envelope?
Yes, this photograph indicates 2/18/22.
And collected by whom?
Trooper Proctor.
Full view, Mr. Wolk. Thank you, sir. And then if we could highlight the lower portion that appears to be by the ruler. Do you see the same, I think you called it a lens number?
Limbs, LIM.
Okay. The LIM number is the same number, the 22-02184, correct?
Yes.
And the item number in this one is handwritten as what?
7/16.
Okay. If we can go to the second page, please. Do you see it, first of all, on the bottom, the same item designator number?
Yes, 7/16.
And what is depicted in this photograph?
A red piece of plastic.
That would be a piece of plastic according to the item number that would be contained in that evidence envelope, one of the pieces at least.
I would assume. Yes.
Okay. Is that a similar 6-inch ruler that's being photographed with that red piece?
Yes, it is.
And how long at its longest point would you estimate that piece of plastic to be?
It's more than 6 inches. I mean, probably 7, maybe.
Okay. And
Maybe 7.
I know this is a little bit of a challenge, but how from top to bottom, what would you estimate the distance to be at its longest point?
3.5 inches, I guess.
Okay. And then the next page, please, the final page would be sub C. Do you see the same designator on the bottom right?
Yes, I do.
That's 7/16, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Appears to be out of the same evidence envelope, is that right?
That's what's suggested, yes.
And how long would you estimate this item to be?
7.5, 8 inches.
And maybe, 3 inches tall? 4?
Yeah, 3. 3.
Okay, we can have the lights up, Your Honor, with the court's permission. Again, the last time you were out at the location with very little snow on the ground, you collected certain items of evidence on February 10th, correct?
February 10th was the last time I collected. I said there was still snow on the ground, maybe in piles where it was excavated. There was very little, but there was still snow on the ground.
You indicated that you obviously looked around the area. You talked about the general area. I think you used the word general vicinity, right? When
Yes.
You collected your items.
Yes.
You didn't see this, and you didn't see the one before it either, did you?
If I saw any of these items, they would have been collected. We did not excavate anything. We simply allowed the thawing and natural recession of the snow to reveal additional items.
When you were there on the 3rd, February February 3rd, there was still some snow on the ground, and you did excavate, correct?
Yes, there was a lot of snow on the ground. Yes,
By February 4th, that snow was dissipating some, correct?
it was, yes.
And you were excavating through that as well, correct?
On the 4th?
On the 4th?
No, we did not excavate on the 4th. The item revealed itself, and I collected it.
That was it, okay, fair enough. Then on the 10th, you didn't need to do any more excavating because there was quote unquote, in your words, very little snow. Very little, right?
Those were my words. Compared to the first day, there was very little snow on the ground.
And in fact, you did not see any of the items that were collected, or claimed to have been collected at 34 Fairview by Michael Proctor on February 11th, the day after you were there, correct? Did not see that item?
Did not see that item, no.
And did not see any of the items that you've seen that were claimed to have been collected by Michael Proctor on February 18th, a week later, correct?
Those items were not observed by me, or else I would have collected them.
We can take this down. I want to change gears for a second, Sergeant, if it's okay with you, and switch to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. You indicated that on direct examination, you reviewed video evidence and you had information that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed arrived at the Waterfall after leaving C.F. McCarthy's, correct?
That is correct.
I'd like to ask you about who your investigation revealed was there at the Waterfall when they arrived. What about Brian Higgins?
Yes, the investigation revealed Brian Higgins was at the Waterfall at their arrival.
And you learned that John O'Keefe and Karen Reed arrived at the Waterfall together, not separately, correct?
That is correct.
About what time did, according to your investigation, Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed arrive at the Waterfall?
I believe it was 11:03, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
When they walked in, you've reviewed the video, correct?
Yes, we played it yesterday, yes.
When they walked in, Brian Higgins was already situated in the Waterfall, standing or sitting at a sort of a high top bar table, correct?
Brian Higgins was present. I don't know his exact location. The video would depict it.
You did learn that Brian Higgins, on January 29th, January 28th, going into January 29th, 2022, had what could be generally referred to as a romantic interest in Miss Reed?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you receive certain text messages from Brian Higgins during the course of your investigation?
I received extraction of his text messages. I did not receive any text messages.
Did you actually receive an extraction from his phone, or was it simply text messages that he supplied to you on his own?
It was extraction of text messages on a CD and also printed out the same document.
Did you perform that extraction, or was that extraction performed at your request by Massachusetts State Police from his phone?
It was not performed by me, and it was not performed at my request.
Okay. So in fact, when you met with Brian Higgins, he simply provided you something that he said had been extracted from his phone.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did he provide you something?
Yes.
Did Brian Higgins indicate that he had taken those off of his phone?
Objection.
Sustained.
What was your understanding about what the items were, the pages of text messages that you received? What was your understanding about where they came from?
From his device and his communications with the defendant and Mr. John O'Keefe.
But you did not have a forensic extraction performed, correct?
That's correct.
And Brian Higgins never gave you his phone to perform a forensic extraction, correct?
That's correct.
So the items that you received were directly from him and him alone. Is that right?
He handed me the items. I don't know who else was involved. You said him alone. He handed me the items.
That's what I mean. You reviewed those text messages back and forth, correct?
It's been some time, but yes, I had.
And those purported to be, I think you already said, those purported to be two strings, I'm going to call them strings of texts, some string text messages between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
And some string text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
Would you describe the text messages between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed that he presented to you as flirtatious in nature?
Without having recently reviewed them in detail, I don't want to label it something without having complete understanding of the content. I'm not comfortable putting a label on something.
Well, how would you describe them? I mean, were these business texts?
No, these were, friendly communications. I don't want to put a label on it. There were communications between acquaintances or people that know each other. There was text message communication. As far as flirtations, I would have to take a look at the content of it for certain terms that would support that label.
Well, do you remember a text message exchange about a kiss that was shared?
Objection.
Sustained.
Do you remember any text message between the two of them that suggested a romantic interest, either one of them may have had, based on the text messages?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we approach now?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach? Sergeant, I've handed you a document in addition to what's been marked as evidence item 111. There's a document that's heavily redacted. Do you recognize, or do you see that document?
I do.
Do you see a word on that document?
Yes, I do.
Does that appear to be a redacted form of the document that is the same document or the same page or copy of that page that you saw this morning from those notes?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'd like to have that marked as next in order, the redacted document, with the court's permission.
Okay.
And with the court's permission,
Hold on.
sure.
Is it on report?
Your Honor, may I, with the court's permission, put a side-by-side of the single word that we discussed at sidebar from evidence item 111 and what's been marked as 114?
Is there an objection?
There is.
Yes. Not at this time, Mr. Jackson.
In your opinion, having seen those two words next to each other, do they appear to be the same or similar handwriting?
In my opinion, they appear very similar, yes.
Okay, thank you. May I approach one more time, Your Honor?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you just flip through that briefly and tell me if you generally recognize what that document
Absolutely.
is?
I do.
Thank you, Sergeant. What is that document generally?
Generally, it appears to be screen captures of a text message conversation.
Is that the document that you earlier referred to as having received from Brian Higgins?
It's a printout of the document, yes.
You saw something in electronic format, I take it,
Yes.
and you reviewed it on a computer.
Yes.
Did you receive the electronic file on a thumb drive or a CD or something like that?
I did.
Okay. And this appears to be a true and accurate representation of that electronic copy that you received from Brian Higgins.
To the best of my understanding, yes.
And is that document reflective of the text messages that Mr. Higgins indicated to you were between the string, as I use that word, between Brian Higgins and Karen Reed?
This is what was provided, to the best of my understanding, and now has been printed out.
Okay. With the court's permission, I'd like to ask the witness to read the text messages that he was provided by Brian Higgins
So we're going to mark this
for identification only.
You're certainly not asking him to read this whole document.
I expect to.
I'm going to see counsel. All right, so jurors, we're really trying to be expeditious as we can be. So there was a big stack that